thinking about people listening to this conversation, what do you think are what's key what should people take away from this that'll in either of the three groups we've been talking about? What is a lesson that would be helpful for them to take away from this conversation?
I think that it's really important for the individual to always remember their agency in their engagements. And so I know when I'm a person in the audience and I'm listening to these types of things, it can feel very overwhelming. Again, that idea of overwhelm, to figure out what's enough and where to start and how do I do it without making a big mistake or these types of things. And I think that all of those things are valid. And also, most of us in our professional lives who are likely listening to this, we show up at meetings, we take notes, we're chatting with people, we're engaging with other professional colleagues or in the community. And I think that we can continue to be really intentional with those engagements and take that reflective pause before them to think about what we're bringing. So if we're coming into that program with our research hat on, or if we're coming into that program with our funder hat on, what are we bringing to the table that might be really hard for the person on the other side to be able to have an equitable conversation with us? If you're worried about whether or not you're going to be able to keep your program alive, if you're going to get that check, that's not a really balanced conversation. And so if you're the funder coming in, what can you do to put that at ease or acknowledge it? If you're the person in the community who's going into someone's home and seeing them in a really vulnerable position in terms of their limited ability to access healthcare services or things that they need, what can you do to center that person still, like in their humanity, and not just this one problem space and that
Mhm.
they're just this problem? Because that's, I think, where we go astray and we lose ourselves and lose our solidarity and connection. So I would just ask that people think about those moments as much as they can. Obviously, things are busy and we get caught up, but finding those moments to pause. And I think it can have that snowball effect in a good way where it builds and we see those opportunities and other people see it and they go, huh, that was a neat way to do it. Maybe I'll try that too.
Thank you. Kirk?
Yeah, 100%. I'm having a very hard time finding anything to disagree about with what Lacy is sharing. And so I'm tempted to just say, yeah, what Lacy said. But I think it's really important that in addition to owning one's own agency and taking responsibility for standing up for one's own interests and one's own self, that at the same time, that person has to acknowledge that everybody else in those three legs of that stool I described earlier have to do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's about a complicated social contract among all of those different groups. And when the researcher's talking to the participant in the program, there has got to be acknowledgement of the value of each person's role in that conversation. And when me as the new nonprofit manager, when I'm talking to funders, I've got to make sure that I understand that I've got the equal obligation to stand up for my program and my stakeholders and my ideals that are driving what I'm doing.
Mhm.
But at the same time, similarly, respecting the commitment and obligation that the funder has made, because it never stops. The web gets bigger and bigger, right? I had a lovely conversation with a community foundation development person today, and they helped me remember that they are reflecting the interests and wishes of different donor groups or in different individuals, and there's got to be a lot of back and forth. At the end of the day, I keep coming back to communication and just the importance of being able to say, okay, we're talking about, in our case, mobility. That means this. Are we clear? Everybody's on the same page. Okay, good. Why is that important? We think that if that gets better, then these things get better. Oh, have you thought about this thing over here? Yeah, but that's not really our deal, right? So having those conversations so that everybody is using the same lingo and pulling the same direction, I think could have great effect on all of those relationships.
So I have a little list here that I'm making like so anyway, here's my list from listening. Agency, fear, mistake tolerance, grace, continual learning, communication, and transparency.
And equal dollops of tolerance for ambiguity and distrust of ambiguity.
Oh,